Excellent. So with that, I'll kick it off one more time. Welcome. This is the UB Applied Ontology FAQ. Several of you have reached out with questions. We thought it best, instead of addressing those questions one by one in a piecemeal manner, than to do it all together as a group. And so this is partly because a lot of you had the same questions, also because we're very busy. So, welcome. We are here to take those questions. I'm envisioning this as being participant-led. So with that, unless Barry or Regina want to jump in with any other introductory remarks, I'd be happy to turn the floor over to the participants, and let's get started answering questions. Not all at once.
When will the program be available, the doctoral program, to submit an application? And if you enter the program, do you earn a master's on the way to the doctorate, or is that an option, or is it strictly a doctorate? And are the courses for the doctorate the same core courses as in the master's?
Starting with the last ones, yes. Yes, for the alignment between the master's and the PhD, the core classes line up. In fact, you'll get a master's in passing, or you have the option of getting a master's in passing to the PhD. It'll be an additional bit of paperwork and a thesis course that you have to take to complete that. But it's certainly something that happens regularly across PhD programs here and otherwise. And then for the when is the PhD application available? My understanding is that the link will be available for the application within the month. I think, Barry, is that track with what you were thinking?
I don't know any more than you on this, but anyone can apply now for the master's program and then just slide into the PhD program at their leisure.
That is what we've been recommending folks to do. If you would like to go ahead and get started, just apply through the master's. And we have an agreement with the administration right now that if you just kind of signal to us that you would like to get into the PhD once it's live, we will, grandfather you in, as it were. Although, again, I believe last I heard, the actual link for the PhD proper won't be available until later in the month due to some administrative stuff, although the program is live technically. It's kind of like an interface issue. So, great, that's even better. So Victor has pointed out here June 15th. Okay, also that I should not apply for the MS and move to the PhD. Well, you can do that. Go ahead and do that if you want to.
All right. Hey, well, that begs the second question. If you're in the MS program, is there even a reason to rush into the doctoral program?
No.
Or is it sort of set up that if you get a master's, you can sort of just flip over to the PhD when you're finished with the master's anyway? Or I guess, for a matter of following Hoyle in a registrar's office, you'd be in the doctoral program sooner, but to get the master's, you'd really just do everything required for the master's curriculum.
That is correct. And honestly, if you were asking me which to go with, and that is sort of general recommendation I give to folks, if you are just interested in getting the skill set down, like honing and applied ontology or ontology engineering skill set, the master's largely will work for you. You can get a job where you'll actually get hands-on training with the skill set you'll learn through the master's program. If you are interested in pushing the boundaries of research, if you are interested in having a doctor right before your name as a way to open doors, maybe you have broad ambitions of going into government or in a commercial space, and that can be very valuable, then the PhD track is probably better suited for your ambition. All right, we have some hands. Shannon. Oh, wait, I'm sorry, Adam. I'm sorry. Didn't realize there was a one there. Hi, Adam.
Hi. Can you hear me?
Mm-hmm.
Excellent. I have a few questions, so I guess, do I ask all of them, or will I? Okay, we'll see.
I suspect your questions will be shared, so go for it.
So I'm someone coming right out of their bachelor's. So two things on their mind are one, how fit will this MA program be as introduction to more intellectually challenging concepts, or potential jumping off point for research and PhD work. And my other kind of questions are like around like hireability and like, can I find a job? So I think like for the first one, this is like a little specific, but I think like I might as well just, so I'm like a math, computer science, philosophy student. And so a lot of my interest is in like higher order logic, like figuring out what homotopy type theory is, doing a lot of like Kaplan or like working with like the 20th century philosophy of language. That's all well fit to the program.
Speaking my language, man. You almost said Kaplan. I was like, yes, let's do this.
Yeah. Oh,
Yeah.
demonstratives is my favorite paper.
Fantastic. This next one.
Yeah. Or yeah.
I'm a bit of a Lewisian myself, so we can fight later. But yeah, answer your question. Absolutely. So there's a real sharp intersection between the formality that we use, the formalism that we use, philosophy of language, what you see. And I think a lot of philosophy of language is like kind of an application, like a real application, a careful application in linguistics and field language of the sort of formalisms that you learn in formal logic class or that kind of underpin mathematics training, certainly in the US. And so at least that's my experience with all of these areas. And all of these areas impact how I model, how I build, and what I do when I'm an ontology engineer. So short, that's the longer answer, but the short answer is absolutely.
Yeah. And I think sort of like secondary to that is like, since it is online and I heard most of the classes are asynchronous or like most or all, you know, the one thing I feel like I could really be missing out on for a master's is like a community of like students to like talk about this stuff with. And so I'm wondering, do you do anything to supplement that? Like what's up on that front?
Yeah, so despite this being asynchronous and the goal being for these courses to be remote and asynchronous, we certainly keep in touch ourselves. Me, Barry, and Regina keep in touch with the students. So I will speak for them, but I'll have, kind of sessions off schedule where we get together in a group like this and talk through, what you've done, what you're doing, blockers, that sort of thing. I think somebody has their audio on. Would everybody mind muting just in case so I'm not here? I mean, I like my voice, but not that much, but we also have various channels, sometimes in Slack, sometimes in email listservs where students get together and collaborate. This is something we're keen on, right? We want students to interact with one another, and it's quite a bit different if you're in-house or on site as opposed to remote. We are sort of taking some ideas too. So if you have any, I have ideas about how to generate more of a like interactive community, like outside of the classroom, I think would be valuable. But then just going back to speaking to my classes in particular, I require students work together. You open GitHub issues, you review each other's work as if you're working on a project for a project manager. That means you all talk to each other, you all work together to make sure it's nice and good before you send it to me because I'm busy. That's not kind of the highlight of it, but it requires you to work together. It requires you to meet. It requires you to like be engaged in the community in a way that maybe philosophers typically aren't, which is valuable in our field because we have to learn to talk to different people because what we do is so interdisciplinary. We just need to be able to kind of shift code switch often, persuade people, talk to people, uncover what they mean, and that you can do that really a lot easier if you're working with people outside of your discipline in a collaborative way. So we encourage that. Barry, Regina, do you want to say anything more?
Yeah, so in the courses I've been teaching, interactions between students have formed part of all the grading processes. So I've been giving people not essays to write, but rather presentations to deliver in front of all the other students, which means that a good fraction of the semester is actually directly a matter of student involvement. But the biggest course that I've been teaching, the one with the most subscribers, the grading there was in terms of project work. So the students divided themselves into teams to address various projects, including projects that they themselves invented. So, for instance, a series of interviews with the prominent ontologists about what they did with ontology in their work, that kind of thing. That actually was very well taken by the students. So they not only did they work together with each other, they were also working with prominent people in the discipline. So.
It's excellent. I have some more questions, but maybe I'll jump
You did
myself
have-
to the back of the line.
Yeah, you did have one about hireability too. So I think what Barry was just mentioning about like interacting with prominent members of the field, that goes a long way. But just the way the market is, the students who want jobs have jobs, for better or worse. They have jobs. There's a lot of work to do, and people are willing to pay for it. So
Okay. Do you know about anything about the market in Canada by any chance?
there is it's less, I know less about it obviously than the US and Europe. Well, maybe that one's not so obvious, but there are ontologists who are employed regularly in Canada. Over at Uterato, there's a whole team of them. But as for like the commercial space in Canada, I'm less sure about. I want to say though that if they're not on board and hiring, they will be shortly, just from some Five Eyes conversations that we've been having recently. But more on that later.
Thank you.
We'll hop over.
So a good way to track this is to go to Google Jobs and just write ontology, Canada. I did this. I didn't do it for Canada, but I did it for Europe. I did it a year ago, and the number of responses was 0. When I do it now, I get something like 20 responses. I imagine something like that will happen in Canada too, or it has already happened.
Yeah, we're up to 34.
Okay, so better than I had anticipated. I would have lost that bet.
We maintain a Slack channel too, where that everybody has access to. You may or may not be on it, but one of the channels is a job channel where we just kind of post and let people go for it. But, all right, so Shannon, patiently waiting. Hello.
Yeah, no, hello. My questions are going to be from a different perspective. I've been in the industry for 2 decades plus, and I have a master's in MIS. So as the application process states, it's looking for references from faculty members. I'm assuming that those references can be from peers or industry people that I've worked with.
That is correct.
Okay.
We should
And
get that
then-
changed. We should fix that. So I'll take a note to fix that.
Okay. And then the second question is, I believe I read something around credits for work. So if I've been in the industry modeling data more from a relational, there might be some opportunities for credits for that.
Yeah,
Is that
absolutely. That's correct. And we have here, I'll link in a second to a description and a handbook that we have where you can see the actual breakdown. The way it works though is essentially we'll test you and we'll see where you fall and give credits basically based on your experience. Although, speaking well, your experience itself will be calculated into the evaluation. Clearly, you have a lot of experience doing this. And so it's likely that you will have transfer credits just from your work experience, as well as for what it's worth, transfer credits from other programs. So we're kind of like, we like it when folks work in other areas, like get exposure to other disciplines. And so when that exposure is relevant, we allow for transfer of credits from other courses in as well.
Okay, perfect. Those were my 2 questions. I'm good.
Excellent.
Thank
Thank
you.
you. All right, Lucas.
How's it going? So I have a couple. First, what caused you to create this program? Like, what kind of like gap in the market or whatever you would want to call it?
So for me, I worked at Johns Hopkins in the applied physics lab prior to coming to the University of Buffalo, where I was in the QAI sector, the asymmetric operations, building ontologies for things I can't talk about. But I could see there was a memo that was published across the DoD when I started that said, we've invested a great deal in machine learning and statistical AI. We need to focus more on the symbolic representation. I had an idea of where that was leading because the groups, agencies tend to follow in the footsteps of the DoD, whether it be NIH, NSF, all of them. So I could see where this was coming. I could also see that in the history of our field, ontology engineering is not a new field, applied ontology. It's been around for a while. It's had ebbs and flows. Sometimes it's popular, sometimes it's not. I've seen the common complaints about the field. It's too building ontology is too hard, too fragile, stuff like that. One common issue throughout these ebbs and flows has been a lack of proper training. And so there's an opportunity here to come to the University of Buffalo, work with Barry, where I'd studied prior to working at Johns Hopkins. And I could see this opportunity as one in which we could really standardize the curriculum for the first time in the world. And so it should have been done years ago, but for better or worse, here we are now. Partly, so in answer to your question, partly to meet the market and demand. And so far, I was correct to make that decision, make that move. And so far, we are keeping up from what it's worth, the market demand, although, fingers crossed we keep doing that. Come join us, help out.
Nice.
So I've been trying to do this for 20 years. I originally put forward an idea to create a degree program in ontology about 20 years ago to my colleagues in the philosophy department here. And my model was the way in which sciences over the course of history have very often had their start in philosophy. So physics grew out of philosophy in the time of Aristotle, and economics grew out of philosophy. Psychology grew out of philosophy in the 19th century. I figured that ontology was going to be a science in its own right, and that it would grow out of philosophy in just the same sort of way. And that was associated with another motive in my work in philosophy from the very start. Namely, I didn't want to do philosophy that would only be read by other philosophers at best. I wanted to do philosophy in a way that would change the world. And so my idea is that this is about the third or fourth step in a long and slow process towards world domination. That's my goal. I want everybody in the world to use VFO ontologies. And when they do ontology at all, and we're doing pretty well.
Yeah, we are.
Thanks. I mean, I guess that kind of leads into my next question. Like, where do you see it going in the next 5-10 years?
We are pretty entrenched in getting more entrenched in programs across the U.S. government as well as across governments and commercial sector overseas. We are sort of becoming part of the back end. What we're doing now is trying to frame the use of ontologies and models that we build as sort of a best practices so that, interoperability is actually achievable, information quality can be improved, and that we don't get stuck in these kind of operational binds where it's like, oh, I got to simplify a graph because I have a stakeholder demand, where we have, like instead, a semantic layer that's governing what's being generated in an operational layer. Hopefully that jargon makes somewhat sense to you. But where I see this going is as part of the broader system architecture that we see across platforms. So it's kind of a foundational piece. You're not going to get rid of us once we're there, but you'll be glad we're there because now you can generate all sorts of executables off a firm foundation. I mean, for me, I see what we do as a foundation for traceable, explainable code, which is fantastic because I have tried as part of a larger team to annotate and ontologize a Python code base, and it is impossible. So I'd like to lay a firm foundation so we can see what we're doing when we're doing it with code. So that's just one of the many things I see going forward. But I don't want to monopolize this. I'm sure Barry and Regina have ideas as well.
Regina, you wanted to say something? You need to unmute yourself.
Yeah, sorry, I was looking for the mute. No, I'm honestly just, it really is, as prospective students may have noticed, John and Barry are pretty much the spearheads of this program. I'm here in the background and happy to respond to, as I've talked to, I think, a couple of you already about the program. I'm here in some ways, like, just to kind of hear about what we're all sort of on the same page about when it comes to this program. So that's pretty much all I'll have to say. Is happy to talk to any prospective student and also happy to hear the answers to these questions.
So
let me add a little bit more on the question, how do we see this in the future? So one of the reasons why I think philosophy is still a sensible home to an ontology program is because philosophy teaches you how to argue, how to win arguments, how to be persuasive. And I know I've been working with ontologists, particularly in the biomedical world, for more than 20 years now. And I changed the way in which they approached ontology. Basically, they were doing it in a very, very sloppy, uninformed way. I changed the entire community of biomedical ontologists by arguing with them and pointing out errors that they were making, errors of logic. I think that need arises whichever domain you're working in. There will be people, and I won't say people working with databases because it's not only them, but there will be people who don't understand that what's important about data is the world that it is about, not how the format is arranged or how your codes are designed, but how it relates to the world. And that's what ontology is all about.
He's not joking either. He changed the whole field. I mean, we're in the presence of greatness. It's Barry.
I have to try and be more modest, so you shut up.
No, please go on. I love it. And Michael? Oh, I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. I keep forgetting. Ron, it starts with 1, not 2. It just keeps changing. Ron, hello.
Hi. Let me take down my hand. So I'm coming at this from an angle probably somewhat like Shannon, who already talked. I've been an ontologist for 2 decades, and in the tech industry, mostly companies like Amazon and Meta. I know a lot about applied ontology, but I lack the philosophical foundation, and that's my interest in the program, is to really dive deep into the philosophical underpinning, you know, the metaphysical commitments that drive our work. So the fact that it's in a philosophy orientation is fantastic. That really appeals to me. But the one thing that I was curious about is whether there are particular research themes or areas of focus that you're looking for that align with your, you know, with faculty interests, or if it's sort of the sky's the limit, like we can come with, you know, all sorts of ideas, because I have no shortage of ideas. But what I'm wondering is whether there is an intent to sort of align with, you know, some pre-established themes, or if you're open to, you know, kind of crazy ideas about research topics.
I'll speak for myself. I am all in for crazy research topics. I want to hear them. I want to explore them. I want to get creative and crazy with it. We do have some standardized methodology, but if you're in the field and you've worked in the commercial space, you're probably already familiar with it. It's not like we're reinventing basic software engineering best practices, right? Like that's kind of what it is. And so getting people, and especially folks who come in with more of a philosophy background, getting them up to speed on the engineering aspect, that's part of what we do. But the other is the, you know, the kind of metaphysical, philosophical, logical space, as well as when we're pushing both of these angles, just research novelty. Like this field is flourishing, it's growing. There's a lot to do. Like, I don't know if you're familiar with cybersecurity at all, but like, where's that in this space? Yeah. Great, a lot of great research questions to explore. That's just off the top of my head. So in answer to your question, this is a place to do, you know, get the skill set, the tradecraft down. If you don't have it, or if you have it, help push the field forward. I'm really excited about that. Barry, you want to add anything there?
So I guess we, that is to say, Regina, myself, and you are on this call. And we do most of the teaching at this stage, although gradually we will be expanding our teaching store, but also we have a number.
Who's that?
We have a number of electives, which you can see on the handbook that John will be distributing the link for shortly. But most importantly, we are surrounded by a number of people, some of them in the academic world, some of them in the research world, some of them in the government world, who we work with and who provide opportunities for people to do things like internships or just collaborations on research. And these are in all kinds of areas. So whatever your field is, I can pretty much guarantee that we will find someone who is in our ontology landscape who is interested in your field. And so many of them are in Buffalo, as it happens, not in the university. But we kept some of them here.
Very good. Okay, now finally, Michael, hello.
Hello, good morning. Shannon's question, I think, ended up touching on testing. I'm curious if you could just say a little bit more about that, especially the symbolic logic exam, just kind of how that's intended to function, how you expect folks to prepare for it, that type of thing.
Yeah, very good. So the logic, intro logic competency, it's supposed to be it's an undergrad level logic class, basically. And we want to test to see if you're competent in standard formalisms for first order logic, entailment, model building, just basic model building. And so we have this competency exam where you can come in and kind of test out of it. If you're not able to study up and get through it, if you don't have a background, we also have, our set aside course, an independent study, we call them, which you'll take with either me or one of the, like maybe Tom Bittner, or Maureen perhaps, where we'll just kind of teach you that over the course of a semester, just as if you were in a symbolic logic class. There is a GitHub repository where there's symbolic logic resources, there are sample tests, there are videos that I've made, there are questions and stuff you can like explore, as well as the textbooks that we use to generate at least my versions of the exams, which are not dissimilar from what Tom and Maureen use. So that would be my best, my suggestion. I do know that they're using the same textbooks as far as I could tell. So,
and you should explain who Tom and Maureen are.
Yeah, Tom Bittner, as well as Maureen there, they have been with Barry for a long time. They're University of Buffalo professors in this department. Maureen focuses more recently in metaphysics, but in the early days, especially when she got here, she was kind of one of the pillars of laying down the formalism for the field, as well as especially in mereology alongside Tom Bittner, who has continued in that vein, although he splits his time between our department and the geography department, and is currently working through formalisms for mereology, or the study of parthood, as it relates to quantum mechanics, which is just crazy, but fun people to talk to. I will say they're less involved as the three of us, but they do teach courses and have been in the field for a minute. And so you'll end up learning a lot from them as we go. And I'll drop a link to this repository for you so you can see. I suppose, though, I should say, I surmise in your question, you were also asking why, like why this, why the logic? Yeah. I mean, for me, a lot of the modeling that I do is just logic, like expanding signatures of logical theories. That's how I think of ontology engineering. I'm expanding the space of logical interpretations of data. And so, and I do that rigorously and formally in a kind of a systematic way as a foundation for code. Like that's my take on it. And so I'm often using like tips and tricks that I've learned from studying logic over the years, like boundary condition checking, entailments. I use automated reasoners, stuff like that. Now you don't cover that in the symbolic, like certainly not automated reasoning in that intro course, although it's something I'm happy to talk more about in the future, because especially as we do use automated reasoners for a subset of first order logic in ontology engineering, which I teach courses, by the way, as you get more advanced on what those subsets are and how they relate to each other, as well as the first order logic you learn in that class. That class is essentially, though, a foundation on which you will learn and understand the kind of inference machinery that we have and apply in ontology engineering.
Great, thank you. One follow-up, you talked about some of the connections that you have within industry and the idea of being that kind of unified backend layer. I'm wondering, because I've been like Shannon and Ron in industry for a while, I'm just wondering what you've done proactively to try to kind of pull people into a framework like that, because I was always working alone and everybody I know was always working alone.
Isn't that odd? But yeah, so by hook or crook, the strategy has changed over the years. And so instead of, we've taken sort of a macro perspective. And so we've started approaching kind of leadership at companies instead of the engineers at companies, leadership in the government instead of the engineers in the government, so that policy can be written, mandates can be written, requirements can be informed by the best practices that we have, which is one of the reasons why, Basic Formal Ontology, which is the top level, the ISO's top level that we use here and teach about here mostly. It's mandated for use across the DoD and the intelligence community. It's also being used widely in the finance industry from the Treasury. It's also an ISO standard. You see what's happening. Like there's a pincer movement here between the engineering side, making it clear to the engineers why it's valuable, easy to use, as well as the policy and people at the top. So you need them both to make it change. And when Barry and I talk about, good things are happening, that's what we're talking about, because we can see the manifestation of like jobs flourishing that have, say, our best practices written into the requirements, And honestly, we spend a lot of time writing requirements for people. So.
There's another dimension which started in around 2002 with the creation of something called the OBO Foundry, which means Open Biomedical Ontologies Foundry, which is a consortium of about 20 ontologies which are BFO conformant in the full sense, and then another 100 or so ontologies which would like to be BFO conformant. That has been growing from strength to strength for the last 14 years or so. But in the meantime, we created other foundries. So in 2016, we created the Industrial Ontologies Foundry, which is doing the same thing for mostly the manufacturing industry, but we're gradually broadening our view to include, for instance, pharmaceuticals, and members of that foundry include Lockheed and various other large corporations. And so that's the idea, that we work with people doing ontology inside Lockheed in order to show them how to do it in such a way that they won't have to do it again later, because they'll do it properly the first time.
You will, in passing, learn the tips and tricks, the human aspect, the selling, the arguing tricks that we learn. We'll teach you who to talk to that we've learned about would be valuable, how to pitch, to make it clear what the value of what we're doing is. I often say, and I think this is true, I'm not really selling you anything. I don't have anything to sell you. It's more like I'm just trying to get your modeling on the right track. And so within that vein, like we've certainly learned how to say certain things for different audiences, and that aspect of ontology engineering is just incredibly important. So we will teach you what we know and hopefully learn from you as well. All right, Sean.
Okay, can you hear me?
Sir.
But I thought I would I have a question, but I thought I would start by helping Barry's modesty a bit here. So I work for one of the largest public rail agencies, and from starting the course from January to now, we have the VP talking about ontology. We have the chief of the Office of Innovation using the word ontology. We found out that a research department within the organization that is scoped with providing AI work for the entire New York MTA works with ontology, but has always been afraid to bring up the name. And I said the word ontology in a meeting the other day, and people went wild. They were like kids locked up who were begging to be let out. What does this mean? I think what it means is we're at the cusp and we're at the edge. You will not be able to do sensible AI work, however we want to interpret AI. That's a whole conversation. You cannot do it. You cannot Nobody's looking at data anymore. They want the meaning of data. You can't move data because now you're moving it without meaning. So what I would say to everybody who is like, is this real? I would say, this is real. I would say next, this year I didn't do it, but next year if I'm hiring anybody, and they do not know what ontology is, they're not on the cutting edge, and I won't bring them on. Anyway, that's it. Okay. That's
Love to hear that.
yeah, it's
Yeah.
so I would say it's that much, and the real data people who are humble enough to realize that this is not philosophical garbage, they're the ones doing good work. If you're not in an organization like that, my suggestion to you is to start looking for a job where you put the word ontology in your resume and somebody got excited about it. Anyway, that said, my question is the question about faculty interest is one I had. So thanks for asking that, Matthew. Or somebody else asked, but my other question was, so can you explain once more about either remaining in the master's program or transitioning? I already have one master's. I want to get into, as early as I can, some serious work and research in the geospatial sphere. GeoAI, I don't really like that term, but I'll use it because it makes sense to everybody. GeoAI or spatial artificial intelligence is moving at a rapid pace, or needs to. My work needs to. And so one of my questions is, if we have a research focus or consideration that we really need to just get into, it's not about the PhD or something else. It's the nature of the work and being challenged to push the edge of the work in a very serious way. Do we remain in the master's and have coursework and other research work aligned with that? Do we go to the PhD? Thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, there's some space to do both, like the cutting edge work in both either I should say the master's or the PhD, although it's typically more often done that kind of cutting edge emphasis in the PhD. That said, the master's is flexible insofar as we don't require that many core classes, and we do have a wide range of electives, many of which are in the geography department and the computer science department, because we kind of want this interdisciplinary approach. So there's plenty of opportunities to push cutting edge research even within the masters. Like Tom himself is like he's a GIS specialist, right? This is just true. And you're right to point this out. Like we need to do cutting edge work sooner rather than later. I mean, the market is what the market is, right? And so it's not going to wait on us. So for those of you who have backgrounds already, I think will be much more amenable to like having you jump into that cutting edge work at the master's level. Because we'll assume you have gotten some best practices under your belt too that we'd be covering in some of the required classes. Even in the required classes, though, there's space for that kind of creative exploration built into the projects, at least for my projects. So everybody has to do the stuff, like everybody has to complete some projects. Some are more creative than others. Some allow more flexibility than others because we want to meet different needs. Barry, would you like to say?
Yeah, several things. So first of all, we have a list of electives, but if you want to work in an area where we do not have a course listed in the list of electives, then we will find you a course. But also you should be aware that you're not only going to be doing, or you won't only be required to do courses, even at the very beginning of your master's work. At every stage, you will have the opportunity to do guided research with one or other faculty member, even a faculty member who is outside the ontology world. They may be in finance or in some other domain, and you want to do research on that domain, you can get credits by working on a project guided by another faculty member. Then also we have the opportunity for internships, often with pay involved, and that's another way in which you can get credits. So you can get credits for being paid to work on what you want to work with outside the university.
Mm-hmm. And yeah, to emphasize, so researchers in the space that you're interested in, this is for everybody, who are intersecting with ontology work, like we will be very keen on connecting you closely with them as early as we can. We like to put your face in the right faces. So if we know of somebody working in GeoAI, and we'll find them if we don't, then we will make connections. We network heavily, and so because we want to be on the cutting edge, and so that may be in the university, that may be outside the university, right? We have big Rolodex in that respect.
And Sean, can you tell everyone who you are?
Sure. I'm the Director of Geospatial Technologies at the Long Island Railroad. I do some double director work across the EAM, Enterprise Asset Management as well. So.
And what have you been doing in the most recent months?
In the most recent months, I've been using ontology to make the data AI aware. It's probably not a phrase.
But what else have you been doing in the most recent months? I know the answer to this question. I don't think anybody else does.
I've been doing research into how to get LLMs to be more grounded in reasoning on geospace. That's one thing I've been doing.
Yeah, but
go ahead.
You haven't revealed that you have been a student in this program for the last.
Oh, I haven't. Yes, I have, and that has.
So maybe people have questions for Sean.
Yeah, yeah. If you have questions, I'll be happy to answer. I will say the program has helped me to, John's point, to be able to articulate to senior leadership in a way where there is buy-in, interest, wonder, care. Now they can't think about AI apart from ontology, and that's one of the things we learned early in the course. Attach ontology as a foundation of a current need that someone has. And then they'll be like, oh, so this needs to stand on top of this. And that's been one of the key points learned early through the master's program. No regrets so far, and a lot more traction than I expected, to be honest. Yeah.
Well done.
Yeah, so yeah, it's been phenomenal, and it's been what would I say? It's been environment changing at the workplace, and the clarity for me on how to approach these things. So yeah, but if you have any questions, you can reach out. I'm fine answering it.
So, thank you, Barry, for insisting.
So I didn't tell him to turn up. This was his decision.
No, yes, it was.
Well, Sean makes good decisions.
I think Barry has been tired of all my emails when it's appropriate.
Oh, I doubt that.
But yeah, absolutely.
Well, thank you for that. I doubt he's tired of your emails. Sarah.
Hi. So I have a lot of experience and I feel like regular knowledge of verbal philosophy and law and government, and I feel like I could easily tackle those topics with respect to ontology, but I've barely ever touched the data stuff, and I've never used Python. We used SAS in my master's for public health, but that was really only an introductory thing, and I don't remember how to use it. So I don't really know how that merges with the philosophical idea of ontology in the first place. I'm guessing a lot of it would be categorizing things based on the raw data you collect and then seeing how the categories relate to each other. Other than that, I don't really know where I would begin to navigate the data part. So how does that work?
Well, Sarah, do I have a course for you? One of the required courses, Logic for Ontologists, is how we kind of get you into the stack, the tech stack that we use and expand on and, kind of play jazz on, as well as like solidify as our core for engineering. So you'll learn things like how to do version control, GitHub. You'll learn a little bit about coding. I'm not trying to train coders in that class for what it's worth, but I am trying to train people who can talk to coders, because you'll have to talk to coders at some point. And it's good to be able to understand, how what you're doing relates to object-oriented programming or something like that, just off the top of my head. You'll learn about the kind of logical formalisms in that class that underwrite a lot of the modeling that we do, consistencies, inconsistencies, like reasoners and checkers, validation schemes like SHACL or SHACS, stuff like that, as well as, and I will share throughout that course, tips and tricks that I've learned in my experience, where knowing a lot about a little kind of nuanced piece of a standard really opened up a lot of kind of creative insights into modeling, as well as like on the engineering side or the philosophical side. And I spend quite a bit of time in that class too, connecting up why the philosophy and when the philosophy impacts the engineering side, so you can kind of see those connected into a nice bow. Somebody did ask if we use the Protégé editor. I think Protégé is a fine tool for teaching people about ontologies, but I would never use it in production. So we will learn how to use it, but you know, there are better things out there.
So from the very beginning, I've seen this program as having two faces. One face is the John Beverly face, which has a beard, and which is very, very formal and very, very precise, and also very, very influential as it happens. And then there's the other non-bearded face, which sees ontology as being closely related to the philosophy of old, not only because we deal with some other topics like categories and part-whole relations and so forth, but also because we deal with argumentation, which is what I was arguing about before, namely the idea that people will accept the ontology load only if you can persuade them that it's really valuable. And I think that's more a philosophical task than they're not going to be impressed by John's symbolism unless they already understand why they should be using something like that. So I will serve as the protector of those people who want to do this program, but who don't want to get lost in the bearded face.
You gotta pitch it as if you have to protect them from me. And I will protect you from the charms of the English professor, non-bearded face. I wasn't prepared for this tit for tat, so forgive me.
You don't look very happy, Sarah. I want you to be happy.
You're muted.
Or you're still muted.
Well, I just have resting mean face, so there's that. At least from what I know about this, I like the idea of it and the pull I feel towards it. I trust that it means something. I just don't know how. I guess I just don't really know what it would look like on a daily basis involving using the data programs. And
so for some years, I have not, I don't know whether John is aware of this, I have not used any of that software. I know how to use a lot of it, but I have not used it because I'm too busy doing other things with ontologies, and I will show you what they are. And if you want to talk to me before you make up your mind about this, feel free. I will explain how it works.
I'd be happy to do that.
I'm sorry, go ahead.
Because I feel like a lot of this does cater towards how I normally think about things, like labeling and categorization and vocabulary and why things are defined the way they are, and how do certain things fit into or merge with other things conceptually, or like in terms of utility or appearance or structure or material, that sort of thing. So I guess the theoretical parts I feel comfortable with, but I'm not really sure how it ventures into practical parts.
Yeah, and I'll show you that too. So not only will I show you how, like, various examples as I'll teach you how to use, like, we'll kind of operationalize BFO, and there's a recipe for construction with it. It'll also be justified, as Barry is very persuasive in doing so. But it won't just be me. I often have speakers come from outside who work in industry, who just kind of like they give talks, and at the end of those talks, usually the students say, "Oh God, John, you weren't making it up. That's exactly how it works in practice." And so you'll get to both hear me train to do it, hear other people validate that, so you're prepared. If you were to do it yourself, like use these things, and with data products, you could see various ways to do it and how it's often done. But hey, you're in the right place.
I tried a symbolic logic class a really long time ago, and I didn't do well in it. I actually had to withdraw. But I feel like it set the ball rolling, and that I understand a lot more now than I used to.
Mhm.
I was at least edging towards an interest I didn't quite know that I had, but something about it felt like I needed to learn, but it was too much at the time. But I'm not a dumb teenager anymore, so I can handle it now.
So there is a book which I published with some of my students 10 years ago now, actually. It's called Building Ontologies with Basic Formal Ontology. It doesn't have anything about the things that you're afraid of. It's all about how to build ontologies to help human beings talk to other human beings in coherent ways.
Mm-hmm.
I'm simplifying somewhat, but you should look at the book. When you email me, I will send you a copy of a PDF version of it. The same goes for anyone else.
All right. So Adam, it looks like you're up again.
Someone's making noise out there.
Gotcha.
So there are some interesting questions in the chat, I think.
Let's see what we got. Oh, there are quite a few. We use Protégé. Can an academic publication? Yes, an academic publication can be used as a writing sample. Use your best judgment. Happy to look at things beforehand, although we're not inclined to give too much feedback on it. So just put your best work forward. I don't have a philosophy undergrad. Happy to backfill the foundation. Or is this the intent of the independent, especially in the foundational symbolic logic stuff, or is this the intent of the independent symbolic logic course? So if you don't have a background in symbolic logic and you're, not familiar with formalism, it's probably best for you to take the independent study. If you're not taking a symbolic logic class, but maybe you're in Adam's shoes, presumably you've studied quite a bit of formalism, so you probably won't have any trouble with it. Go forth and take the competency exam. It's just another formal language that you're picking up. You probably already used it without knowing it. But I would encourage folks without that background, though, to take the independent study. So backfilling is important.
I actually took a symbolic logic class, but you know who I am. I'm in my 60s. I took that class in 1981, I think.
My.
So as much as I'd like to say I'm sharp on my symbolic logic, I would rather just take the class over, because I'd rather build off a good foundation than to try and wing it. And I have the time to take the class. So I just wanted to make sure of what I'm supposed to be looking at. So thank you for that.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Right. So Shannon asks, are you seeing situations where agents are being designed to inspect data, metadata to propose ontologies? Yes. So I'm the PI for an NIH grant right now where we're exploring, and Regina's participating in this as well, where we're exploring the domain of behavioral and social science research from an ontological perspective, but also in the interest of figuring out how to use AI and connect ontologies up with AI in a robust way for the purposes of generating hypotheses that researchers can go forth and test. So we have a bunch of subject matter experts on the team who are like evaluators for the kind of upshot of the ontology-driven models that we're generating. Happy to talk much more about that. Happy to have contributions. I'm always interested in having people participate in the calls, which I'm going to go to after this, actually. But the short answer to your question is yes.
Okay.
Let's see. Do y'all hands-on with anything besides Protégé? I write a lot of scripts myself because there aren't a lot of tools, although we've been building a tool suite called Ontos Cosmos that is, opens, a lot of which is open source. That kind of helps me as an engineer because honestly, it takes too long for Protégé to load. That was the first. I'm kidding. There's no version control support for it. It's kind of clunky, too many buttons. I wanted to streamline for the workflow, and so we have some tools in development for that. I used to use Top Braid, but then they pulled their licenses and got all weird about it. But even that one wasn't a particularly good tool. It just had good version control support. You will learn about the different tools out there. You won't have to take my judgment for them. If you're not familiar with their cons and pros, you'll pick them up. Let's see, vacuum. Okay, yeah, all right, Shannon. Well, thank you. Let's see, we've got some more hands up. So Sarah, I believe your questions were answered, if I'm not mistaken. So Adam, we'll hop over to you. Back to you.
Yeah, I think one thing I'm wondering, so I have a very accountant side to me that loves doing formal logic paraphrasings for like 3 hours straight. And I also have a very like social or like leadership side to me, who'd love nothing more to spend all day on Zoom calls and then run some meetings. I'm wondering, like, one, with like ontology, like, since a lot of it is getting like automated, like how much room is there for like the kind of like rote, like basic tasks, like, you know, I'm gonna rephrase this and then this, and like doing all the like pedantic little details. And then like how much room is there like for like flipping over to like leadership positions, or like how social is the work? How well does it translate into like moving into a management position, this kind of thing?
Have you tried to use AI to generate like really careful disambiguations of natural language expressions, like at the level of precision you would need for, say, mathematics? You should try it, and that'll give you an answer to the first thing. They can do pretty well for a lot, but you know, the kind of precision that we work with is just too high. Like they're not good at that kind of precision. I don't imagine a scenario in the near future where they are going to be, and that's important, especially in the groups I work with, where the stakes are really high, right? Like I need to know for sure that's a hospital, and right, that's a proof thing. And so that's an answer to that question. Also, the social side, that's just not going to go away. I mean, we need people that are willing to do exactly what you just described. That's something like when you were describing your background, I was like, is this guy me? Like, it's very valuable. It's very important, both of those. And I just don't see them going anywhere in the foreseeable future. In fact, part of the curriculum is designed to emphasize those.
And what one of our students who hasn't been in Washington very long, but he's already advanced in the hierarchy. So he is at the equivalent, the civilian equivalent of the lowest level of being a general. He'll be a major kind of general within a couple of years, I'm sure. And he is at the moment in charge of ontology for the entire Department of War, as they all call it, and the intelligence community.
That's right. There was recently in December, the National Defense and Authorization Act published, or like the past through Congress, that mandated the creation of an ontology governing group across the DoD and the IC. The group they picked, the group they were pointing to, was the group that Barry and I have been participating in for several years, and it's the group that he's in charge of. I think maybe Barry was bringing this up because he is very good at the paraphrasing. He's very good at the formalism. He finds it useful in his day-to-day and also talking to people. It's a political position, so he has to be.
Yeah, when you mentioned like the sales stuff, or like figuring out the different way to say stuff to different people, I felt a bit of that, and I just
yeah.
So he is a PhD in philosophy, the gentleman in question. But he did his PhD on ontology. And his when he graduated, he was one of his cohort. He graduated in the same year and got a job at the Applied Physics Lab, which is very closely connected to the DoD. And this was a freshly minted PhD. His starting salary was $175K, straight from university to the job.
Not bad.
So it's our students get jobs. In fact, sometimes they are stolen.
Indeed, they are.
promised by people who can't wait. So.
Yeah. Which is fine, right? Like just get the best practices down, you go forth and it's your life. Enjoy it. But yeah, no hard feelings. All right, Lauren.
Hi, I'm Lauren. I have an undergrad degree in economic anthropology and a master's in pure math. I've been working in the blockchain industry for the past 6 years, and I'm currently doing some work on like categorical semantics for blockchain systems, and I'm also a protocol designer at a startup. But yeah, I don't know if any of that would intuit that like I'm ontology oriented, but yeah.
A little bit.
So I'm very interested in the program. And John, when I emailed you, it was because I had seen like your video about like what can you do with ontology. It was because like I like have a desire to like develop like semantic ontology for like these protocol that I'm working on. And so one, I joined a little late to the call, so I heard something about like remote, and I wanted to ask like, is the first part of the program optionally remote? I also wanted to ask about like funding and about the Slack channel. And then I have like one more kind of like categorically different question, but that's about like is there like a formal verification or proving system for like testing the robustness of an ontology?
Oh, Lauren, we're gonna get along just fine. Fantastic questions. So let me handle the logistics stuff first. So the full program is remote, so you can you won't have to come if you don't want to. It is Buffalo after all. So get that out of the way. For the funding side, we typically will help folks get internships because there's a lot of work to go around, and those internships will count as course credit, but also come with pay. Because we would never encourage you to go volunteer your time somewhere not in this market. And so we're happy to help work with you on stuff like that. There are also grants that we have. If you are, if your skill set is particularly suited to something that we're working on, then and we have funds available. We're very likely to enlist you or at least reach out and see if you'd be interested in taking a stipend and covering your tuition and healthcare through one of those means. I can tell you, just given your background, I would be interested in working with you on some of the grants that I have. I do see the field. I mean, to answer your question about formal verification, there are the tools that we use related to formal verification insofar as in ontology engineering intersects are the tools that you would see in formal verification methods in general. We are, I think, not to the level of enriched semantics yet to really be able to take advantage of them. But that is where I see the field headed, and that's where I'm kind of trying to help the field get. And then on the protocol stuff and blockchain, I did want to say, so some of the exercises that we pursue in the various classes that I teach, like intelligence analysis and ontology engineering, ontology tradecraft, the exercises are build a protocol ontology, right? So it's right in line. It's a challenging thing to do. And even in the blockchain, the thing that you said, a lot of the modeling I did at APL was modeling blockchains for various adversarial nations. So I have a lot to say about the things that you've said. I think you're in a good place and happy to have you on board. Please tell me if I didn't answer something, though. It was a lot.
Thank you. I appreciate that. And I definitely would like to continue the conversation. I guess just like the last thing I was wondering about, because I am also looking for like an ontology community, like in the meantime, is the Slack channel, like, is that a publicly available thing or is that only for the students?
No, it is. It's bigger than the university. And so I'm happy to just go ahead and add you now. I can add you as we're on the call.
Oh, great. Thank you.
Michael Bonner wants to be added also.
Okay. Yeah.
And Ron Rice.
Okay. Can do.
And Sarah, I think you should add everybody.
Just adding everybody.
Sarah, Victor.
I'm just gonna add everybody.
Yeah.
Welcome to the Slack. Yeah.
Okay, so I put my email in the chat, although I'm easy to find on Google.
Mm-hmm.
And if any of you have further questions, I'm more than happy to answer them. And particularly Sarah, if you have more questions on the philosophical side of the house, then feel free to write to me. So I am going to work very hard to ensure that the philosophical side of the house prevails, or at least persists.
It's not a competition. It will persist. We're on the same page. You need both.
Yeah.
Competition is how they both persist.
Yeah.
So I think somebody new, Jeffrey Green, just joined.
Okay.
Jeffrey?
Yeah, no, I've been here. I came in about halfway through. So this all sounds very fascinating, and I'm kind of looking at this from my major, which is I'm a hard science guy. I have a degree in biology and chemistry, and I really took to ecology. And I know AI is kind of taken off there, but what's interesting about ontology is the communication aspect. Now, Barry, I see you've done a lot of work, and I've actually read up on you a little bit, and it sounds like a fantastic career, and it's needed with biomedical stuff, and that sounds great. Has anybody ever looked into the ecological communication with using some of these technologies? I'm well versed in Python, but like AI is new and there's all these tools and communications, and I just don't know how broad the faculty at UB is. Has anybody ever talked to you about something similar to this?
So there is something called ENVO, the Environment Ontology, which you should look at. And the people around ENVO are actively engaged in all of the things that you just described. I was one of the co-authors of ENVO, but I haven't worked, well, I guess I have worked in that field more recently, but I've worked not on what you might call the ecology of the natural world, but rather on the ecology of the human world. So what kind of an environment is this Zoom call or Teams call? That is the kind of question that I've been exploring. What kind of an environment is biochemistry? That they are questions which I'm working on, and which are connected with the problem of devising an ontology of organizations. But all of that is probably irrelevant to your interest. I can put you in touch with a man. I don't think he's related, but his last name is Buttigieg. His first name is Per. He was the primary author on ENVO.
Thank you very much for explaining that. And like I said, I'm a little late, and so I know what's involved in a traditional PhD. And I love the idea of having this asynchronous for people who already work full-time that are willing to take on a full-time load. My question, and you may have done this already, so I apologize, but you know, PhDs are often met with, you have your qualifying exams and dissertations and defense and publishing. Is any of that required along the way, and to what extent? And once again, I'm sorry if you did this already. Don't feel you need to repeat yourself if you've already gone over it with the group. I couldn't make it until about 1:30.
No, we haven't dealt with this. And I will, first of all, point out that this does not have to be a full-time job. So I would think the majority of our students are doing this part-time, and so they're just taking an extra couple of years to finish. I don't think that the load is as significant as you make it sound. So many of the things on the list will serve two purposes. So you write an essay in order to get a grade in a course, but the same essay can be used as your documentation to move to the next level, that kind of thing. So I wouldn't worry about that. It's deliberately designed to be such that you can do it without taking away all of your free time if you're working with a full-time load already.
Mm-hmm.
And the courses are asynchronous, which means that you can watch them anytime you like. So watch is probably the wrong word.
Thank you very much.
You can take the courses at any time. I worked out that if you worked really hard, you could do the PhD program in something like 7 weekends. But you'd have to be working 24 hours a day.
7 weekends?
Something like that.
Oh my gosh. We will encourage, as is typical, at least participate in co-authoring of papers. We co-author a lot. This is partly just so you get the kind of persuasion chops down, the argumentative style, also to connect you up with other people in the community who are co-authors, as well as getting your name out there. So, academic publishing for its sins is a great way to get people to know who you are.
And to get jobs then.
And to get jobs. People outside of the field don't know where you publish. They don't know the journal. They don't care. They just see that you got a peer-reviewed publication. They're like, wow, that's amazing. So, I'm not saying publish in bad venues. I'm just saying. All right. Are there any other questions? Sarah, did you have more? Okay. Let's see. I should. All right. So with that, I suppose.
I have a question, but I saw Chris's hand was up.
Okay. Go for it, Chris.
Hello. I have 2 master's degrees in psychology. So I'm coming from a psychology background. I'm a therapist. Just to put my field down for a second, it feels a little bit like a dying field, but I do use ontology without intention quite a bit as I diagnose and use the DSM. But you mentioned, Dr. Beverly, that you have this NIH grant where you're having behavioral science. Would that be like, is psychology something that is in the ontology spectrum, or would I be so coming so outside the field that I would be like in lost water? Does that make sense?
Yeah. So, couple of things. Psychology, there's not a lot of ontologizing of the psychology domain, partly because it's hard. But that's why I wanted to delve into it. I'm seeing it as a good opportunity to really demonstrate the tradecraft and help researchers in the field cordon off what is, perhaps more properly philosophical from what is more properly within the scope of the science. I'm not doing this as a psychologist myself. There are subject matter experts involved. My wife is one of them, who's in the other room right now. She's part of the grant. But in particular, we're working in the space of like both qualitative and quantitative, solitude and narrative identity theory aspects. So we're taking a big chunk, right? But we're trying again to like rigorize it, formalize it, make it precise, figure out like how solutions to the jingle-jangle problem, as they call it in psychology. How do we know that this construct in the mouth of this researcher is the same as this construct in the mouth of this other one? So, this is a long-winded way of saying you will not be out of the loop. This is a growing area of research. NIH funded a lot of projects a couple of years ago to explore behavioral social science research here. And we were one of the teams that got funded. So we'll be funded for years. I can imagine we will continue. This will generate further funds for psychology exploration, because you know, not to toot our horn, but we're doing it. It's working. So. All right. Anything else?
Yeah, once you reach candidacy, is there an actual number of units or number of years you have to be in the program before you can actually graduate, or is it simply dependent on finishing the dissertation and getting committee approval on your work?
So you do have to hit a mark of 72 hours. Timeline is less of a factor. But you can get transfer credit, you can get test out credit for that, or to help you get some of those. And then you can meet a lot of those hours by like signing up for classes to write your dissertation, basically. And so like the writing itself will be part of like incorporated, or is incorporated into the curriculum as hours. And so we made it kind of easy to get that number of hours that you need from the university perspective.
Got it. So thank you.
Absolutely. Okay. All right. So 2:20. Thank you very much, everybody. I appreciate your time. If you have any more questions, as Barry said, reach out to one of us and we'll do our best to answer. You should all be on the Slack now. Feel free to post questions there. People, the Slack's full of people who have been through the program, who are in it right now. You can get other perspectives, so you won't have to, you know, hear it from the horse's respective mouths here, but from the students on the ground as well. But I'm going to post this video online, so other folks can benefit from it. If you want to take another pass at it, maybe you missed something, maybe you just want to hear Barry's lovely voice again, go forth and enjoy. So with that, take care, everybody. Hope to see you soon.
Bye-bye.